who became rich after divorce. What was she trying to do? I never expected to get rich because of a divorce. I expected to be destroyed by it. My name's Mark. I was 43, owned a small but steady landscaping company, lived in a modest house, and had been married to Christina for 11 years. She was the classic high-maintenance turned minimalist type, started our marriage with a taste for labels and European vacations, and ended it preaching about spiritual wellness, simplicity, and how I was trapped in a lower vibrational frequency. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I worked hard. But apparently, I wasn't evolving fast enough for her new journey. So, she filed for divorce. No warning. No therapy. Nothing. I came home one Friday, and all her stuff was gone. There was a note on the kitchen table that read, "This is not abandonment. This is alignment." Whatever the hell that meant. But the note wasn't the real kicker. The kicker came a week later, when I was served. Christina wanted everything. Half the house. Half the business. Spousal support. Retroactive emotional compensation, which isn't even a real thing, but her lawyer still wrote it in. And even, get this, ownership of my company's name because she helped me come up with it back in 2012. She also demanded we sell the house so she could move to Bali with her new energy partner. Not kidding. She was leaving the country permanently and still wanted lifetime support. I felt like I was in a satire film. My lawyer, Tom, was an old friend from college who owed me a favor, and thank God he stepped in. Because Christina's lawyer? Total pitbull. And the judge? Not the sympathetic kind? This was going to get messy. At the first hearing, Christina brought in character witnesses. Her yoga instructor, her breathwork coach, even a tarot reader. They all claimed I was a financial anchor, keeping her from manifesting her true self. When we presented my actual income and business records, things got even stranger. Christina said the numbers were manipulated. She claimed she was the reason for my company's success because she cleared negative energy from my business cards before I handed them out. I'm not making this up. But here's where it got really interesting. Tom found out that Christina had quietly invested in some crypto projects while we were married. Small stuff at first, then larger ones as she started following these wealth energy TikTok gurus. But when we subpoenaed her financial records, she didn't list any of them. She had nearly $1.2 million in crypto spread across 5 wallets. She never declared a dime of it. Not during marriage, not during the divorce. We presented this in court, and for the first time, her smug smile cracked. She argued it was spiritual currency and not fiat, therefore not real in court. The judge laughed. That laugh was the beginning of the end for her case. Still, she didn't back down. In fact, she doubled down. Suddenly, she was claiming I'd emotionally extorted her into the marriage by promising her a life of wealth, and that since I failed to deliver, she was entitled to retroactive financial freedom. Her lawyer threw every word salad in the book at us. Tom stayed calm. He let them dig their own grave. And they did. In depositions, she admitted to using marital funds to buy crystals worth thousands and get energetic coaching from a woman in Sedona who spoke to light beings. She also claimed she manifested my success and therefore deserved 50% of future earnings from my mind. At this point, the judge ordered a mental health evaluation. I didn't laugh. I wanted to, but I was too exhausted. My whole life felt like it had been hijacked by a person I didn't recognize anymore. I used to think Christina was the love of my life. Now she was a walking TED Talk for delusion and entitlement. Then came the turning point. Something so bizarre that it flipped everything upside down. It had nothing to do with me, the house, or the business. It had everything to do with what Christina tried to do next. The real chaos began when Christina tried to trademark my name. Not the business name. My name. Mark Langley. She filed an application claiming that Mark Langley was now a spiritual brand associated with growth coaching, divine masculinity, and eco-conscious landscaping principles. I couldn't believe it. She was literally trying to steal my legal identity and convert it into her personal brand. Her plan? Sell online courses under marklangley.live and turn me into a symbol of conscious masculine entrepreneurship. And yes, she bought the domain. When I checked the URL, it had a photo of me from our wedding day, edited with a filter and a caption underneath that read, "The man who awakened wealth. Learn from his journey." She didn't even tell me. I found it through a Reddit thread someone forwarded where people were mocking another delusional goddess trying to trademark her ex. At the next court date, Tom dropped the printed pages on the judge's desk. Christina said she had every right because, and I quote, "His energetic imprint belongs to my ascension timeline." Even her lawyer looked embarrassed. The judge was furious. He ordered a cease and desist on the website and demanded that all unauthorized use of my name be removed immediately. Christina claimed the site was protected under artistic expression. Then she started crying. Big theatrical sobs. She said the stress was blocking her sacral chakra, and she might have to flee to an ashram to recover. At this point, I thought I'd seen it all, until her energy partner entered the picture. His name was Arlo, shirtless in most photos, a self-declared tantric web designer who sold handmade wooden iPhone cases infused with intention. Arlo claimed to be Christina's business partner and spiritual twin. He also filed a declaration in court claiming he had helped build my company from the ground up, through remote energetic labor. Yes, remote, energetic, labor. He said he would meditate on client acquisition from their apartment in Santa Fe, and that this counted as contribution. Christina's plan was now clear. She and Arlo were trying to squeeze me from every direction. If she couldn't take my company directly, she'd wrap it in spiritual lawsuits and IP theft. Tom leaned in one day during a break and said, "This isn't a divorce anymore. It's a heist with yoga mats." So we pivoted. Quietly, strategically. Tom brought in a forensic accountant, not to audit me, but to audit her. We started digging into her wellness brand, Awaken the Now. It was supposed to be a coaching platform, but it turned out she had been funneling tens of thousands of dollars from our joint account during the marriage into business development for it. What was this business development? A $14,000 retreat in Costa Rica, no receipts. $7,200 on crystals and healing stones, cash only. A $10,000 payment to a shaman for energetic DNA realignment, all under the umbrella of shared marital purpose. When Tom presented the findings, Christina looked at the judge and said with a completely straight face, "These weren't expenses. They were initiations." The judge sighed so deeply I thought he'd cancel the whole case on the spot. But here's the thing. We weren't done. The crypto was still on the table and Christina was starting to panic. She'd tried to transfer the wallets to Arlo, but we caught it in time. That's when she did something bold. She offered to settle. Her offer: she'd drop the support claims and trademark filings if I gave her 25% of the business revenue for the next 10 years. No ownership. Just a vibrational royalty. Tom laughed out loud. So did I. And we declined. Next thing we knew, Christina filed a new motion. This time, she accused me of mental cruelty. Apparently, my refusal to acknowledge her gifts and supportive energy during the marriage had stunted her growth and made her feel like a vessel without a mission. She brought in a psychologist, licensed, surprisingly, who had worked with her during the marriage. He testified that I had covert narcissist traits because I didn't validate her spiritual business dreams. Tom absolutely shredded him on cross. We proved he had been paid through Christina's business, the same Awaken the Now platform we were auditing. The judge threw out the motion, and then, in a dramatic turn of events, Christina collapsed in the hallway. Panic, EMTs, drama. But no medical issue. She was just emotionally overwhelmed. We thought that was the end of the theatrics. But oh no, the real twist was coming. Because Christina had one more trick up her sleeve, and it nearly worked. 3 days after the hallway fainting spell, I got a knock at my door. It wasn't Christina. It wasn't her lawyer. It was Child Protective Services. Apparently, someone had filed a report claiming I was harboring an unlawfully adopted child in my home and exposing them to toxic masculine ideology. I don't have kids. Never did. Christina and I had tried early on, but after a couple of losses, we stopped. She later claimed motherhood was a patriarchal distraction. So this allegation? Completely fabricated. The CPS agent was professional, even apologetic. She said anonymous reports still had to be followed up. I let her walk through the house, explained the situation, showed her court documents. She left within 15 minutes, but the damage was done. Tom was livid. Christina had escalated into false legal accusations, and that crossed a line. We filed a motion for sanctions and a restraining order. The judge called an emergency hearing. Christina showed up in a white linen robe, barefoot, with a string of sage burning in a tiny bowl. She called herself a spiritual whistleblower. The judge asked her directly, "Did you file a false CPS report against Mr. Langley?" Her answer: "I submitted a divine warning. The state chose how to interpret it." She smiled. He did not. That's when the judge ruled. Hard. He dismissed all of her spousal support requests, froze her attempt to take any percentage of the business, barred her from using my name or likeness in any context, online or otherwise, and sanctioned her legal team, who promptly withdrew representation within a week. I thought it was over. But here's the sick twist. This is when I got rich. While Tom was wrapping up the divorce paperwork, I was contacted by a friend who ran a podcast on bizarre court cases. He begged me to come on. I said no at first. Too raw, too personal. But he insisted and promised to keep names anonymous. The episode went viral. Millions of views, Reddit threads, TikTok edits, memes. People couldn't believe the phrase vibrational royalty was real. Within a week, I got an offer from a small book publisher asking if I'd consider writing a memoir. I laughed. Then I actually considered it. So I wrote, nights, weekends, between clients, a raw, darkly funny manuscript about the collapse of my marriage titled, She Left Me for Light Beings. It sold, not just copies. Rights. Netflix got interested. Then Hulu. Then Prime. Eventually, a bidding war broke out for limited series rights. I walked away with a mid-six-figure deal, not including residuals or foreign rights. My little landscaping business exploded. I renamed it Grounded Energy, part joke, part brand, and leaned into the story. My client base doubled. People booked me just to talk about the divorce. I turned into a meme, and then, somehow, a minor celebrity. But Christina? Oh, she didn't go quietly. She resurfaced under a new name, Amara Solstice. She launched an online course platform with titles like Unbind the Ego, Divine Finance for Goddesses, and, you guessed it, How to Alchemize Your Divorce into Ascension. She even made reaction videos to my podcast appearances, claiming she was the true victim of spiritual exploitation. The kicker? One of her courses literally used our wedding footage as symbolism of patriarchal bondage. We sued again. Cease and desist. Another restraining order. Another takedown. She raged online for weeks until her accounts were banned for harassment. But then, silence. For 6 months, I heard nothing. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd finally moved on, until a package arrived on my doorstep. No return address. Inside, a handwritten letter, a USB stick, and a single white crystal. The letter read, When your empire crumbles, and it will, know that I forgive you, Amara. No threats, no accusations, just that chilling calm. The USB stick contained one file, an unreleased video called The Truth About Mark Langley. In it, she sits in a candlelit room, monologuing for 47 minutes about how I manipulated the collective field and stole her divine downloads for profit. I didn't even watch the whole thing, but Tom did, and he found something I missed. Something that would change everything. Again, Tom called me at 6:30 the next morning. He doesn't do early calls unless it's urgent. Mark, he said, you need to come over. Now, bring coffee and a notebook. I assumed it had something to do with the video, but I hadn't even told him I opened the package. Turns out, he'd already pulled it from the legal archive. My assistant had forwarded him the contents as a courtesy after I mentioned it. When I got to his place, Tom had the video paused at timestamp 001347. Watch, he said, hitting play. Christina, Amara, was ranting about the energetic theft of her divine blueprint. But then she said this, and even though the crypto was in my name, it was never really mine. Arlo and I created that map. Together. We split the phrases. I kept half. He kept half. It was safer that way. I blinked. You caught that, right? Tom asked. I hadn't. But now it hit me like a freight train. The wallets. Christina had claimed they were all hers. In court. Under oath. But if she and Arlo had split the seed phrases, the strings of words that grant access to a crypto wallet, it meant she didn't have full control. She likely perjured herself. There were more wallets we didn't know about. We brought in a crypto forensic analyst. Within 2 days, he confirmed what we suspected. The wallets we'd originally traced were only the surface layer. Christina had been using Arlo as a shadow custodian, bouncing assets between wallets using obscure privacy coins, masking the trail through various swaps and decentralized platforms. But they weren't good at it. Sloppy patterns, timestamp overlaps, IP leaks, and finally, a stupid mistake. They reused an email address, chakraflood at protonmail.com, to register for a course that included a payment ID linked directly to one of the shadow wallets. Boom! Another $870,000 in assets. Untaxed, undeclared, hidden. Tom filed a motion the same day. When the court reconvened, Christina didn't show up. Neither did Arlo. They filed a delay request citing energetic burnout. The judge denied it and issued a preliminary judgment in their absence, ordering immediate freezing of all known digital assets. A warrant was issued for full disclosure of their holdings. 2 days later, I received an email from a burner account. You've stolen my light. Prepare for spiritual consequences. Ascension can't be stopped. It wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. The fallout was nuclear. First, Amara's website was pulled by its hosting platform after multiple fraud complaints. Then her crypto assets were legally seized and liquidated. And then, the final blow. A documentary crew that had originally planned to film a healing journey with her shifted course and aired a 2-part expose titled The Goddess Grift, How Amara Solstice Scammed the Sacred. Guess who they interviewed? Me, Tom, the CPS agent. Even Christina's former breathwork coach, who admitted on camera that she had been paid to exaggerate claims during the court hearings. Christina became a walking cautionary tale in online spiritual circles. Forums lit up. Her followers abandoned her. The grift was exposed. And Arlo? He vanished. His socials were wiped. No posts, no emails, no trace. Until someone on Reddit claimed they saw him working at a juice bar in Sedona under a new name. Skylar Rain. Classic. Meanwhile, the book sales surged. The Netflix adaptation was greenlit for production. I was flown out to meet the screenwriters. And the money? Let's just say my landscaping days were numbered. But wealth brings weird gravity. People started coming out of the woodwork. Old friends, distant cousins, high school acquaintances, all suddenly fascinated by my journey. Some wanted advice. Others wanted handouts. One guy I barely knew from high school offered to co-write a second book about masculine healing through gardening. Another said I owed it to the public to start a coaching program called Mow Your Mind. I politely declined. Then came the final letter from Christina. It was handwritten, shaky, and unlike her usual bravado. It read, "You won. I surrender. The light took everything. But remember, wealth is just dense energy, and density sinks. See, no threats, no demands. Just resignation." I kept it in a drawer. Sometimes I take it out, wondering if she ever really believed any of it, or if it was all one long game, a desperate hustle dressed up in dream catchers and crystals. But I had no time to dwell, because 3 months later, someone else sued me. Someone unexpected. And this time, it wasn't about spiritual property. It was about defamation. And it came from a very different angle. The lawsuit came in a thick cream-colored envelope. No return address. But the firm's name at the top, Wyatt and Kendrick LLP, made my stomach sink. High-end, reputation-focused, ruthless. I skimmed the first page. Then again, slower. It wasn't Christina. It was Arlo, under his new name, Skylar Rain Kendrick. Apparently, he had legally changed it and was now suing me for defamation, misappropriation of likeness, and emotional damages resulting from what he claimed was a malicious public smear campaign that led to personal ruin. I laughed when I read the line. My client's sacred profession has been irreparably damaged by the false portrayal of him as a scammer, a fraud, and a shirtless fake shaman. Tom didn't laugh. "This is serious," he said. "He's lawyering up with people who win reputation cases for celebrities. He's gunning for your money, not your apology." But here's what really got me. He wasn't just referencing my book or the podcast. He claimed the Netflix series based on my divorce was fictionalized in a way that intentionally humiliated him, despite not naming him directly. He pointed out one character in the script, Dustin, a man with long hair who builds wooden phone cases and teaches breathing classes while living in a yurt. Skylar said it was undeniably based on him. And you know what? He wasn't wrong. But the show was fictional. All names changed. No real photos. No direct references. Still, he argued that cultural context and overlap made the portrayal damaging. Worse, he claimed to be suffering from nervous system disintegration as a result. His legal team even submitted medical records from an alternative healing clinic in Oregon, diagnosing him with energetic whiplash and solar plexus trauma. Tom nearly threw the file across the room. "Energetic whiplash," he repeated. "We're being sued by a guy who vibes too hard." But the court accepted the case. That meant discovery, which meant more digging. And that's when things took another dark turn. Tom's team began tracing Skylar's finances. Not just the crypto, but the workshops, donations, and speaking gigs he'd held over the years while operating under Arlo. Turns out, Skylar had received multiple large PayPal donations from women, some as high as $8,000, with subject lines like, "Thank you for unlocking my womb code. Your presence healed my father wound. Please don't disappear again." We were stunned. Then we found his old site, preserved via Wayback Machine, sacredreturn.net. It was more than yoga or eco-philosophy. It was an entire network of workshops where he'd travel city to city, promising spiritual intimacy and sovereign recalibration through sensual guidance. It smelled like a cult-light operation, wrapped in yoga pants and incense. Tom said, "We don't need to prove he's a fraud. We just need to prove he made himself public, because if Arlo/Skylar had built a public persona and profited from it, then our depiction, even if inspired by him, could fall under fair use satire. But we needed testimony. And that's when we got a message from Marissa, a woman who had once dated Arlo during his twin flame phase with Christina. She said she'd been following the case. She'd seen the documentary. She knew it was about him. And she had receipts, emails, payment records, even private messages where Arlo admitted Christina was useful, but that his real plan was to drain her assets and vanish. We brought her in, quietly. She gave us everything. He called Christina a wind-up toy with a bank account. He mocked her rituals. He said once she got her divorce payout, he'd convince her to start a spiritual retreat center in Peru, then bounce and let her go bankrupt. It was brutal. It was manipulative. But it was gold. We countersued. Defamation defense? Yes. But also malicious prosecution and fraudulent concealment of his financial motives during the original divorce proceedings. Skylar's lawyers panicked. They tried to withdraw the case, but we didn't let them. Instead, Tom pushed for public arbitration. We wanted the full story out. And just before the hearing, we got the final twist. One of Skylar's old clients, anonymous at first, came forward with a notarized statement saying she had been coerced into spiritual intimacy sessions with him, which blurred ethical lines and cost her over $15,000. It wasn't criminal, not quite, but it was enough. Skylar dropped the lawsuit, publicly, in writing. He disappeared again, and just like that the storm passed. For real this time. No more lawsuits, no more letters, just peace. And then, something happened I didn't expect. Christina reached out. Not in anger, not to sue, but to meet. It came as a text. Simple, no emojis, no spiritual jargon. Just, can we talk? In person, no tricks. See, I stared at it for a full 5 minutes before responding. Why? Her reply came instantly. Because I lost everything and I need to tell the truth. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe a new scheme. Maybe one last cosmic monologue about vibrations and karma. But something about her wording felt different. Grounded. We agreed to meet at a small cafe halfway between where we used to live and where I now stayed in the hills. Neutral ground. I arrived early. Nervous. Not about her, about me. About what seeing her again would pull up. She walked in 5 minutes late. No flowing robe. No beads. Just jeans, a sweater, and a tight ponytail. She looked 10 years older. Exhausted. Gaunt, almost. She sat without saying anything at first. Just looked at me. Then finally, "You won." I didn't say anything. She added, "And I don't mean the money." Still silent. She let out a breath. And what followed hit me harder than I expected. She confessed. To everything. The false CPS call. The crypto manipulation. The smear videos. Even the original plan with Arlo. How they'd plotted to create divine leverage through staged emotional breakdowns and legally ambiguous claims. But it didn't stop there. She told me that after the court battles and Arlo's disappearance, she spiraled, lost all her clients, burned every bridge, tried launching a new identity, twice. But each time, internet sleuths connected the dots. Every podcast, every post, every username, someone was always watching. Her name, her face, her voice, it had all become synonymous with fraud. She said she'd tried taking a job at a holistic spa under a fake name. They found out. Fired her in a week. She moved 3 times. Changed her number. Started therapy, real therapy, for the first time in her life. He used me, she said, but I used you. That's the part that keeps me up. I didn't forgive her. Not right then. But I listened, and she kept going. She told me something that rewired everything I thought I knew. That first year of our marriage, the time I thought she was just finding herself, she had already been talking to Arlo. Secretly. He wasn't some stranger she met after our marriage ended. He had been circling for years. A spiritual influencer she followed before we even wed. They had exchanged emails, then calls, then eventually met up while she was on retreat in Arizona. He made me feel like I was special, chosen. You made me feel safe. He made me feel important. I swallowed hard. She wasn't crying. Her voice didn't shake. It was like she was reading from a confession she had memorized and rehearsed. She said that when she saw me getting more recognition, local awards, growing the business, becoming a name in the community, she felt invisible. Arlo promised her something else, that she could be seen, that together they could build something bigger than marriage. And she believed it. He told me if I couldn't take your money, then at least I could take your story. She looked up. Finally, I didn't just want to ruin you. I wanted to replace you. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get. And maybe, in some twisted way, it was real. She stood up, said she wouldn't contact me again, that she was leaving the state. No more platforms. No more brands. She was going to live with her cousin in New Mexico and work at a co-op. It's quiet there. No one asked questions. She didn't hug me, didn't ask for anything, just walked out. And for the first time in what felt like years, I felt no anger, no resentment, just strange calm. I stayed in that cafe for another hour, thinking, not about her, but about how a person could go from barefoot wedding dances and midnight road trips to courtroom stunts and character assassinations. How many people are walking around with masks they didn't even know they'd sewn onto themselves? And how easy it is for all of us to believe someone else's fantasy if it makes our own fears disappear. Back home, I found the old shoebox, the one with our wedding photos. I didn't burn them, didn't rip them. I just stored them away again. Some memories don't need erasing. They just need closing. But the story doesn't end there, because right as I started moving on, launching a new book, even exploring a healthy new relationship, someone else reached out. Not a journalist, not a lawyer, a woman named Jenna, who claimed to be Arlo's ex-wife. And what she told me would turn the whole thing inside out. Jenna's email hit my inbox with the subject line, "You don't know the half of it." No introduction, no signature. Just a 2-line message. I was legally married to Arlo from 2011 to 2015. You need to see what he did before Christina. I froze. I clicked reply, typed let's talk, and hit send. We set up a Zoom call that evening. I expected someone broken, maybe bitter. Instead, Jenna appeared poised, articulate, and calm. No incense in the background. No floaty hand gestures. She looked me dead in the eye through the webcam and said, "You think Christina was the first target? Try fourth." Then she opened a file. It was a timeline. Names, photos, cities, dates. A pattern. Every 2 to 3 years, Arlo, real name Daniel Keller, would attach himself to a woman in a state of transition. Divorce. Death in the family. Spiritual awakening. He'd woo them through tantra retreats, spiritual Facebook groups, or healing festivals. Same game, different dressing. And every time he'd leave with something. Money, business access, personal data, or a legal mess too complex to untangle. He married Jenna in 2011 in a tiny eco-ceremony in Montana. She showed me the photo. There he was. Same smirk, same necklace, same eyes. She looked younger, softer. I was 24. He told me I had a healer's womb. I winced. They started a coaching platform together called Return to the Wild Self. It lasted 13 months. He drained her savings, maxed her credit cards, and ghosted her in Costa Rica. I spent 2 weeks alone in the jungle while he flew back to the States. Said it was part of my spiritual evolution. She told me she tried to go after him legally, but he had tied everything into an LLC under a third party. No paper trail, no assets in his name. He'd already done this twice before me. I found out after the fact. One woman from Oregon, one from British Columbia. I asked her the question that had been clawing at my chest. Did he ever believe any of it? She didn't even hesitate. Number, he's a sociopath. He just found the perfect cloak. Jenna had spent the last few years collecting stories, quietly connecting with other women, building a case, not legal, but public. A digital vault, screenshots, testimonials, emails. She was preparing to go live with it. But after I saw your story blow up, I hesitated. I didn't want to look like I was chasing the momentum. She paused, then added, but now I think you need to finish it. You're the one people will believe. I didn't want to. I was finally in a stable place. A new relationship. Financial security. The drama was fading. But Tom thought otherwise. Mark, he said, if you walk away from this, another Christina will happen. Or worse. So Jenna and I partnered. We anonymized the victims. We created a full timeline of Arlo Daniel's life, using public records, social media footprints, IP data, and digital forensics. We named the project The Divine Imposter. It was a documentary. But more than that, it was a reckoning. We sold it to a major streaming platform, but under one condition. Every victim would have control over how they were portrayed. No salacious spin. No overdramatization. Just truth. The trailer alone went viral. Clips of Arlo teaching breathwork through the hips, sound bites of him saying things like, "The masculine must penetrate the soil of the womb to awaken harvest." It was equal parts horrifying and absurd. But the final blow came when an ex-business partner came forward. Someone who had worked with Arlo on a crypto wellness coin that never launched. He claimed Arlo had stolen nearly $400,000 of investor money and disappeared. And then we learned something even darker. He'd legally disappeared. 6 months prior, he had filed a death certificate in Costa Rica for himself, under the name Daniel Keller. Staged death. He had faked his own demise to shake debt collectors, exes, and authorities. The paperwork was crude, but in a country where bureaucracy is fragmented, it had stuck, which meant Skylar Rain. Kendrick didn't just rebrand, he resurrected. And we had him. We brought all the evidence to an international cybercrime unit that had been tracking spiritual financial abuse schemes. They opened a case. Quietly. International warrants. Bank flags. And then, silence. For 3 months, nothing happened. Until I got a postcard. No return address. But it was a photo of a waterfall in Laos. On the back it read, "You think you killed the myth, but some gods just shapeshift." No signature. But I recognized the handwriting. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. And I knew this story wasn't over. But neither was mine. I stared at the postcard for 10 minutes. The handwriting. The phrasing. The audacity. It was unmistakably Arlo Skylar Daniel. Whoever he was now. The waterfall photo had a date stamp on the back. Recent. Meaning someone somewhere still believed in him enough to mail it. Or he mailed it himself. From Laos? Or just made it look like he did? Either way, it meant one thing. He wasn't done. And he wanted me to know that. I gave the card to Tom. He contacted the cyber unit. They opened a new trace. Customs flagged a few locations where mail matching the postcard type had gone through. All dead ends. I went quiet online for a while. Publicly, I said I was focusing on writing. Privately, I changed my routines. Started checking locks twice. Let go of a few brand deals that required international travel. People thought I was being paranoid. Maybe I was. But I knew men like Arlo don't disappear. They molt. Jenna and I kept in contact. She'd become somewhat of a silent partner in my media life now. Advising, helping vet collaborators, quietly running a database of spiritual predators and their aliases. We received hundreds of tips, most unverifiable. Some legit. One, however, stood out. A wellness influencer named Tasha Lightroot DM'd Jenna. She was based in Bali, ran an eco-sustainability Instagram, and claimed she was engaged to a man named Kai Stone, a barefoot guitar-playing inner child work coach. Jenna asked for a photo. She sent it. And there he was. Arlo. Same face. New name. Same grin. But this time, something was different. He wasn't hiding. He was live streaming, teaching, selling ebooks, promoting retreats under a new banner, the Inner Rewilding Collective. This was bold, reckless even. But we figured it out soon enough. He was betting on time. So many accusations, so many aliases, so many layers of plausible deniability. His belief? That the internet forgets if you just stay moving. That public memory is short. That scandal only lasts if you let it. So Jenna and I made a decision. We weren't going to chase him. We were going to let him build just enough, and then destroy it. We watched for 2 months, gathered everything. His courses, his booking site, his testimonials, even an embarrassing YouTube video of him leading a group of Swedish tourists in trauma drumming, where he says, "The hips are where capitalism hides grief." That one went in the vault. Then we struck. First, we compiled a 30-page report for local authorities in Bali, citing visa fraud, unlicensed wellness practices, and financial misrepresentation. Then, we sent a press package to 6 journalists in the wellness space who had previously written glowing profiles on Kai Stone. Included was proof of his previous lawsuits, legal name history, and victim statements. The final step? We launched a public interactive timeline, neutral tone, minimal commentary. Just verifiable data. Within hours, it exploded. Reddit, Twitter, TikTok, Telegram groups. Every corner of the internet caught fire with one question. How many lives has this man ruined? Influencers who had collaborated with him dropped his name like radioactive waste. Tasha Lightroot went private, then posted a story. I had no idea. I feel sick. A day later, Arlo, or Kai, posted a video. Sunset behind him. Barefoot. Sad guitar music in the background. He spoke slowly, deliberately. I've been many things. A lover, a healer, a student of light. But I am not your villain. I am your mirror. Classic. But the world had shifted. Comments weren't kind anymore. DMs leaked. A journalist even found a pending lawsuit in Thailand where he'd allegedly taken $50,000 from an investor for a retreat center that never opened. The visa fraud stuck. He was deported. Jenna and I got the news through a back channel. No press release. No coverage. Just a quiet message from someone in the system. Gone. Not coming back. Name flagged. It was over. Not forever. But for now. Back home, I finally exhaled. The second book was ready. This one wasn't about the fall. It was about the rebuild. About how to spot emotional con artists in a world obsessed with enlightenment. About how the line between healer and hustler is thinner than we want to admit. It was called Woke and Weaponized. The launch was a success, but not because it was viral. Because it was honest. I didn't paint myself as a hero. I owned my ignorance, my denial, my enabling. And that's when the letters started coming. From men. Men who had been emotionally manipulated, drained, dehumanized. Not always by women, but by partners, friends, leaders, systems that weaponized vulnerability under the mask of love. It floored me. Turns out, I wasn't the only one who'd been told, your resistance is blocking my expansion. Some men said they cried for the first time in years after reading a single chapter. Others said they finally left toxic relationships. And some just said, thank you. I thought I was crazy. That was the win. Not the money. Not the headlines. But life wasn't done surprising me. Because one night, while doing a book signing in Portland, a woman came up. Mid-30s. Sharp eyes. Held the book like it was burning in her hands. She said, you don't remember me, do you? I didn't. She smiled. My name's Noelle. I was Christina's roommate in college. I braced. But she said, don't worry. I'm not here to defend her. She paused. I'm here to warn you. Noelle's tone was calm, but her words hit like a hammer. Christina's not done. I stared at her. She told me she was leaving the country. That she was finished. I haven't heard a word since. Noelle shook her head. She never left. She's been here the whole time. Quiet. Rebuilding. She pulled out her phone, tapped through her gallery, and turned the screen toward me. The image showed a flyer. Printed, colorful, professional. At the top, the Phoenix Shelter. Healing through sacred separation. In the corner, founder, C. Solstice Christina. Not under Amara or any of the other names. Just C. Solstice. She was using the language of recovery now. Divorce coaching. Empowerment. Conscious uncoupling for feminine sovereignty. She started it in a co-op in New Mexico, Noelle explained. 3 women at first, then 10. Now she has a mailing list. Virtual meetups. Trauma bonding retreats. I didn't say anything. They don't know who she really is. She tells them you were abusive, emotionally manipulative. She rewrote the entire marriage. You're the origin story of her liberation. It was surreal. She hadn't disappeared. She'd simply reframed, burned to ash, and rose again under a new story. And it worked. Her site was full of testimonials. C. Helped me reclaim my light after narcissistic trauma. Her journey from victim to voice is the most empowering thing I've witnessed. Finally, a leader who understands spiritual betrayal. I almost laughed. But it wasn't funny. Do you want me to send you everything I've got? Noelle asked. Screenshots, links, video clips? I hesitated. Then said, yes. The next morning, my inbox was overflowing. Zoom calls. PDFs. Newsletters. Instagram reels. All carefully worded to avoid lawsuits. No names. No direct claims. But illusions. Heavy ones. The man who stole my fire and tried to dim my voice. She'd learned from her past mistakes. She wasn't claiming ownership. She wasn't filing suits. She was simply profiting off the narrative. The story of her oppression. And I was the antagonist. Tom and I reviewed it all. We debated legal action. Defamation? Maybe. But tricky. Nothing was direct. It was all veiled implication. Shadowboxing. He looked at me and said, you sure you want to open this door again? You might win the fight, but you'll lose your peace. I didn't answer. Because I already knew. No, I didn't want to sue her again. I didn't want another court date. Another public fight. Another round of headlines like, Divine Divorce to the rebrand. I was tired. But I also knew I couldn't ignore it. So I did something radical. I wrote her a letter. Not a cease and desist. Not a threat. A real letter. On paper, I wrote, you've told your story. Again. And again. But here's mine. You hurt people. You lied. You burned everything around you, and maybe that was survival for you. Maybe that was all you knew how to do. But now I'm asking you, let it go. Let me go. If you really believe in healing, stop reopening the wound. Don't reply. Just choose peace. I signed it. Mailed it. No return address. I didn't expect a response. I didn't want one. But a week later, I got one anyway. Another letter, this time typed. Formal, neatly folded. I received your words. I hear the grief behind them. But you don't own the story either. You can sell your books. I can teach my truth. That's the balance. May you find quiet. See, I read it once. Then again, I didn't feel anger. Just resignation. She wasn't going to stop. But I didn't have to engage. Her version of truth was her currency. Mine was mine. And I wasn't broke. I closed the laptop. Looked out at the yard. Watched two birds fight over the same scrap of ribbon before both flew off. Empty-beaked and exhausted. It felt symbolic. That night, I went to dinner with Alina, the woman I'd been seeing quietly for months. She wasn't part of the chaos. She didn't know Christina. She didn't care about book sales or trauma branding. She was a school teacher. Smart. Dry humor. Grounded. Over wine, she asked, "Are you finally done fighting ghosts?" I nodded. "I think so." One of them just wrote back, "But I'm not answering this time." She smiled. Good. Because real life's better than ghost stories, and for the first time in years, I believed her. The dust settled, finally. No more letters. No more lawsuits. No more divine rebirths from Christina. Or C, Solstice. Or whatever version she'd settled on. It had been almost 2 years since the divorce finalized, but only now did I understand what true closure felt like. Not a courtroom win. Not a Netflix deal. Not even the catharsis of writing it all down. Closure came in quiet things. A morning where I woke up and didn't instinctively check my phone for chaos. An afternoon spent gardening. Not to distract myself, but because I wanted to. A moment where I forgot she existed, and it felt like freedom, not guilt. My second book, Woke and Weaponized, had gone on to do better than the first. Not because it was more dramatic, but because it was real. People resonated with the rawness. Men, women, everyone in between. I got messages from therapists, group leaders, people trapped in manipulative dynamics that didn't look like abuse from the outside. They thanked me for giving a shape to what they couldn't name. Spiritual manipulation, emotional laundering, self-help turned warfare. But despite all the public validation, what meant the most were the small things. Alina sticking a post-it on my fridge that said, "Stop living in chapters. Just breathe." A high school friend reaching out to say, "Dude, I get it now. I was married to my own version of her." And a letter, anonymous, unsigned, that arrived in a plain white envelope one afternoon. Inside was a single sentence. "I believed her once. I don't anymore." That was it. No name. No context. But I knew. Somewhere out there, someone had chosen to stop being a follower. A believer. A co-signer to the story Christina kept repackaging. And that made it all worth it. Not for revenge. For release. I still get asked, "Do you regret marrying her?" The answer is no. Because regret implies that none of it had value. And that's not true. Christina taught me more through her collapse than most people do through their integrity. She exposed the part of me that tolerated fantasy because it was easier than confronting absence. That accepted being emotionally drained because I confused chaos for passion. She mirrored every soft boundary I refused to strengthen. Every moment I silenced my gut for the sake of peace. And in the wreckage, I found myself. Not the man she branded. Not the victim the internet rallied around. Just me. Unpackaged. Quiet. Still here. Alina and I now share a house outside of town. Nothing flashy. Just space. Trees. A dog named Cedar who thinks he owns the land. We don't talk about sacred unions or trauma echoes. We talk about groceries. Weather. Life. She reads fiction. I write nonfiction. We laugh about how opposite we are. She once said, "I'm your reality check." And I replied, "You're my proof that peace exists." Sometimes we joke that I should write a third book. A trilogy. The recovery. But maybe some stories are better lived than told. The last time I saw Christina, truly saw her, was in a video someone posted from a small healing conference in Arizona. She was on a panel. The camera panned past her face for only a second. She was older, her eyes tired, but she was still there, still telling stories, still surviving on narrative. And that's okay. Let her speak. Because I'm finally done listening. Epilogue. Months later, I was invited to a men's group retreat. Private. Off-grid. No press. Just guys unpacking identity, power, and the quieter forms of loss. They asked me to speak. I stood in front of them and said, "We don't talk enough about being manipulated by charm, about being drained not by fists but by fantasy. We tell men to look out for red flags. But what if the flag is handwoven and smells like lavender?" They laughed. But some cried too. Because the truth is, it doesn't always start with betrayal. Sometimes it starts with admiration. With, "You're the only one who understands me." With, "We were twins in a past life." And it ends with you looking in the mirror, wondering if you imagined it all. So I told them this: your story doesn't end with being used. It begins with choosing not to be used again. And that was it. Not a mic drop. Just a beginning.